Alright guys, so we're here back on the live stream at UK Games Expo. I'm here with Ellie, my man, from Meeple City Games, and we're going to be talking about Vector Wars, which looks awesome and sounds awesome in name, and I'm sure the game's very cool as well.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, just a quick reminder that we're going to be doing a comment to win prize for Monster Apocalypse starter bundles across this weekend. So there's 3 to give away, 1 for Friday, 1 for Saturday, and 1 for Sunday. What you're going to do is comment on the post on tabletop.com, and you'll be in with a chance of winning that awesome prize. So yes, now we're going to dive into this because it looks awesome. I've seen a green team, it looks very cool, it's got undead creatures in it. Yeah. So let's go for it. Explain Vector Wars and what we've got here.
So Vector Wars is a 2-player area domination game, very tactical. The idea effectively is to place your members of your team, which you start with all of them open to you. So effectively, if I had them all like this, I would have all of them available to me at any time. And I'd be able to place one on the grid down so that people cannot see, your opponent cannot see what's on the other side. However, you do have the ability to flip that card and gain the ability on the other side, but by doing so, revealing information as to where the strengths and weaknesses on the card. So if I don't know but if I put it here, you can, so you can see on the card there are 4 sides with numbers, each showing strengths and weaknesses in that direction, and the combat takes place with the adjacent enemy in that direction. So effectively, if I had this guy here fighting this guy here, he would be combating the value on the top of this number, so it would be 9 versus 8. In the simplest version, we would both roll a die, add it to the value on there, and whoever has the higher value wins.
That just decides who wins that,
yeah. But the reality is that it's never that simple, as there are ways to increase the values to the side of the dice. One of them is a fortification upgrade. You can spend 2 of your credits. We have credits here, which we can use, and by rolling it and adding to one side, you're actually increasing the strength of that. There are cards in the market that you can buy with your money, which will actually augment all of the sides of the characters, so they can increase in all directions with that. And further to that, there are shield tokens which you could get, which look like this. I'll put them here. And you just effectively put them on top, and it gives you an extra life. So if you lose combat, you lose a shield token as opposed to...
pretty cool.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of forward planning and sort of tactical thinking there as well, which is pretty awesome.
Oh, definitely the case, because in these cards, they are synergistic when you flip them. So as an example, I'm playing with these undead...
We'll just show these off on the camera as well, so you can just have a look at the artwork and stuff on there.
Oh, you want me to show them here? They're cool. I think they're really cool. The artist, Hal Lauren, is a really great guy. He's done a lot of work on RoboCop. For comic books, so he's really...
That's a pretty good pedigree for doing this kind of game.
Yeah. So he knows his mechs stuff, and he has his own mech series that comes out as a comic book regularly, and he's a great guy. But the point here is that a lot of these, when you flip them, synergize with other cards in your hand. So you really want to plan out where you're putting it and why, and how it affects your opponent. The game. You win the game, I should say, by getting the most number of victory points, not by dominating the tables. So if you're winning this constant battle that you've got on the table, that might not win you the game. Victory points are worked out by something called Zeta Orbs, which are the actual victory points of the game. Credits, which you get 1 victory point for each credit you own. And the other thing is on the top left-hand corner, the strength of the card.
Just show these off there as well.
The top left of the corner here, it's quite small here, but there are 3 dots on this one indicating that it is the maximum strength, worth 3 victory points. Also indicating how strong the cards are in your hand. So if you had just a 1, it would be a weak guy, 3 being the strongest guy, and their flip abilities reflect that.
And those are scored by claiming them from beating them in.
You have to beat them in the combat, and then they'd enter your trophies. So the key part, the key concept here as well, is that by spending credits in the market, which you have on the side here, which I've barely spoken about, but there is a marketplace.
I'll show you that again because you've got it sort of lined up along here. There's loads of different items in there. So.
Yeah, and that's a joint marketplace that everyone can buy. And if you've played games like Star Realms or Ascension, you'll recognise, or even Clank, where you're deck building, but you're trying to get hold of that card from the marketplace. You'll recognise the mechanic here, and you get to take that and introduce that into your hand straight away, and some of them you can use straight away as their free actions, others you may need to wait a turn to use them because they're very powerful.
And the cool thing about that as well, I see, is that you've actually actually got quite a large deck of different things that can show up in the market. So every game's going to be slightly different with the amount of stuff that comes up, which is always pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
I like to see that kind of variation, so you're not always going to see the same items.
No, I mean, I think you'd need to play this game like 10 or 11 times to have seen everything. But, it depends how much those players interact with the marketplace. Sometimes I've played games where people just focus purely on the cards, normally beginners as well, because there's a lot to take in. You've got the flip abilities, you're trying to work out how they work, you're trying to work out what your opponent's doing. Yeah. And then you almost forget that it's there, right? but when you get past that first game, suddenly the whole game opens up in a very different way. The bluffing element of putting the cards face down, you can spend a credit to remove these cards and refresh it. And so you can tactically do that against your opponent, because there are just victory points sitting here waiting to be bought.
Should we show off a couple of the item cards actually so we can have a look at some of the ones you can get?
So this is just victory point cards, but each one of these cards has its own design. It's got a, I think the reflection's going a bit, but it's got its own design, and every card has a little flavor text on it.
I love cards that have flavor text on them. It's always fantastic, because you get to learn a little bit more about the world, and it's maybe a little bit funny at the same time.
Yeah, and some of these are like quotes from movies, but not like, I mean, I'm a big fan of the 80s sci-fi movies. So you're going to find, if you're clever and you notice them, they're very subtle, some of them, but you will find them. Like I'll buy that for $1 is like the most obvious one from RoboCop, but there are a couple here and there. But normally they're smartly interwoven together, some of these comments, especially as like the red team are royalty. So something like the Queen has a comment on it, says that the head cannot move without the neck, right? Yeah. It's just like a nice a flavour to get you into the feeling of what's going on with the team.
Yeah. So as we were talking about the different teams and things, can you break down what's different about each of them?
Yeah.
Just so, because you talked about the red being royalty, how does that affect the kind of gameplay that they have on the table?
Yeah, they do actually score very differently in terms of the play. So the green team, I'll tell you the green and reds that we've got in front of us, but there's two more, the blue and the yellows. The green team effectively are trying to subvert what you're trying to do. So they're going to steal money from you. They're not so worried about the combat. They'll have traps so that if someone attacks you, when you force them to flip, they're going to do damage to you in the process. Cool. Yeah. And they will try and bounce you off the table, make you return back to your hand. So it's like jiggery pokery stuff going on with the green team. And
I always like jiggery pokery.
I describe the green team as the trolls. If you like trolling people when you're playing a game, it's the greens, because they're really annoying. But the red team make money. That's what they do. And remember that the credits are worth 1 victory point per credit at the end of the game.
Okay.
So they're going to be able to make a lot of money very quickly. The problem is that they're terrible at combat.
Right. So it's all about, so that bluffing element comes into play a lot with the red faction here, because when they're faced on the tabletop, you're not entirely sure what they are, so their strength is variable, so you're not entirely sure. But if you flip it over and you suddenly realize it's very weak, you could suddenly take control of it and get rid of it and
100%.
get past the mechanics they have on the cards.
Right, and dominating the table, right, is going to be an issue with red, because you're trying to work your way in, but you're just getting buffeted off the table again and again. So you really need to work hard with the reds to make sure that you stay on the table and make the money. And then obviously you can spend the money in the market to try and help that process.
Yeah.
The blue and yellows are very. I'm calling them blues and yellows, but they all have their own name. Like the yellows are called divination, because they're all angels. So
should we have a look at them first and show some of these off? Because the artwork on these is absolutely amazing as well. So I'll hand those to you just to have a look.
Sure. I mean, I'll try and do a couple of them here. This one's called Azrael. They're all named after angels, and they've all got different abilities. These ones work with the shield mechanic to give extra lives, and they combine with other cards. Oh, I'm shining it, isn't it? So
you got it right.
I got it. Well, thanks. It's combining with other cards to gain like stronger play on the field by having the shield tokens in play.
Right. Cool. Yeah.
Okay. So they just work together with building more and more shield, making it very difficult for you to kill them, because every time you attack and win, they lose the shield rather than die.
That's going to be very interesting in terms of one of the expansions that you were talking about.
Yes.
I saw about, which would be very cool. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah.
Yes. And the blue team, who are the Crusaders, they are just great at fighting. They're very hard to move. They'll cause opponents to rotate. This is one of my favourite bits of art. This one actually. And they will make it very difficult for you to push the blues around. They will fortify their positions a lot. They'll have a lot of added advantages. So they're going to win that. There's a good chance they're going to win that table presence, but they don't make much money, and they don't make many victory points. So it's really difficult when you're spending money on the marketplace with the blues. You feel it badly, right? You really like, I can only really buy this if I really know it's going to earn me a lot more victory points. Whereas the reds are obviously more free to do that, and so are the greens really.
It sounds fascinating then from that point to have these 4 very dynamic different factions that you're going to be working with on the tabletop. Because obviously the game's a two-player game.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a really nice sort of dynamic there between 2 people when they sit down to play the game about which side you're going to pick, planning ahead to think about that, but then maybe doing something and subverting people's expectations with it as well, which I think is really cool.
Right. And I think that I wanted the game to have a lot of longevity. If I'd have just done 2 factions, then it would have only been, you would have played through it a couple of times, but when you've got 4, then you can combine blue versus red versus green, and then the expansions come in.
Yeah.
And that changes the whole dynamic totally.
Yeah.
Because with the normal game, it's just a team deathmatch. You're trying to score as many victory points as you can. But these 2 free expansions that are coming on the Kickstarter,
which we'll talk about in a second.
They change the game in a very different way. The first expansion I've got is called Light the Grid, and let me just reach across there quickly and pull out one here. You can see if I just show here.
Yeah, I'll show off on the camera.
There you go. If you see, you've got highlighted parts to the grid. So we've got some 5 different highlighted red parts. And if you can get your men to stay there on your turn, you will score 2 victory points per correct placement.
Which is where I was talking about with the yellow faction and how they work on the tabletop, and they're sort of like solidifying places to control.
Right.
Suddenly, they're really great at doing this.
Yes, that's right.
So it's an interesting one if your opponent picks that one for that. So
that's right. Well, you think you'd have the advantage, right? You'd think.
I think I would.
You'd think.
But am I going to get a lesson in how I'm going to get owned by this?
Well, the problem is that unfortunately the yellows, although they're able to hold combat, if they don't do something after they've lost the shield the first time, all that's going to happen is you're going to get hit again the second time.
Right, okay.
So they're forced to either come to the marketplace or combine with other cards to do something else. It's kind of like a delay more than it is a solution to the problem.
Cool. So you've got to time your actions perfectly with the yellows in order to get that longevity in order to score those points.
Right, totally. Totally. The second expansion again. So we've got Team Deathmatch, Light the Grid, and now another expansion which is a Capture the Flag expansion. So
we'll just show that. I mean, obviously, all these components are work in progress at the moment.
I'm missing it there. There you go. It's just a flag basically that sits on the board, and you will, when you pick this up, you'll replace it with a blue cube that sits in your shield space, and that will give the person who's carrying it a +1 to all sides. The problem is they can't shield themselves.
Right.
So that's one problem. The second problem is that they've got to be the last person to hold it at the end of the game.
Right.
If they die, they drop it, someone else can pick it up.
Yeah.
It's worth 10 victory points, whoever's holding it.
Wow, okay.
So you're fighting to you're not fighting to gain domination over the whole board anymore, you're fighting to gain domination over one square.
And get that guy who's got the flag.
Guy who's got the flag. And so all of a sudden the game changes very much. Instead of being concentrated in this very logical kind of chessy kind of way, it's all focused into just like trying to hit this guy. It's got that feeling of the computer games, like if you're playing any first-person shooter, right, where you're playing Capture the Flag, you're gonna be very familiar with the feeling, definitely the feeling of what's going on for sure.
One of the things I was interested in when you're talking about this game is that obviously the design's really cool. Where did it start out for you? When did you think, you know what, I've got this really cool game idea in my head, I'm going to bring it to the tabletop?
Do you know what? There's a lot of things that have combined to answer that question. Number one, I used to play Magic when I was a kid a lot, and then I played Netrunner, so the idea of revealing information.
I was going to say, this reminded me very much of in Netrunner, when you play as the corporation, you've got the ice that is always face down and you don't know what surprises are going to await you. And so that kind of mechanic is a really cool thing to see.
Yeah. So I was quite friendly back in the day when Netrunner was doing very, very well. This is, with a guy called Min Tren. He is the guy who owns Jinteki, which is a website that most people use to play.
Yes, I know that.
Netrunner. Yeah. And me and him used to play a lot of games with each other, and I would, I had a lot of influence over his decks that he was producing for the championships when he was going through. So I was very heavily involved with the deck building side of Netrunner, and I love that game. It was a great game. And so, I've all taken different things from different places. Star Realms, I'm a massive Star Realms fan. Love the Star Realms guys. Been playing Star Realms non-stop at my local game shop, and then like any tournaments that I could possibly find in the country. Absolutely loved it. So there's that marketplace was always going to be part of them, but the general like theming and feeling of the game comes from my love of the 80s, to be honest, right? Who doesn't love the 80s?
We're going to share in the VOD for this, hopefully, a link to the Kickstarter trailer that you've done for this, and it is very cool, very inspired by the 80s, very fun. I was smirking all the way through it. It's very good.
Like, if you love Tron from the 80s,
yes, it's
like
very Tron.
This game is very Tron, right?
Yeah.
It's got the theming of Tron, but it's not obviously Tron, but it's got that kind of flavour.
It's got that
right?
cool flavour.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, if you're somebody who likes to have a quick, it's about a 40-minute game.
Cool.
If it can go on to like 50 minutes if things are like really tight between you two.
Yeah.
But in general, you know, you're going to have a nice, good two-player battle with that 80s, strong 80s theme, and that, you know, a constant like sci-fi, futuristic feeling right in front of you all the way through the game.
The thing that I was thinking about when you were talking about the mechanics there, and sort of looking back to those other card games as well that maybe influenced you in the design of this, is I love that it's driven by a set of cards that you always know what you've got at the start of the game.
Yes.
And so it's dealing with those resources and getting that onto the tabletop and playing it in the right way in order to try and achieve victory. But even then, the plan you've used maybe 3 games in a row might not work the fourth time when you come up against another opponent or something because of the different ways you can play the cards. And
Completely. And also you're rolling dice when you combat, so you can
there's
negate.
Always that nice little bit of.
There's a small amount of luck, but it's negated mostly by you know, any kind of fortifications you do or position planning that you've achieved. There are often times where you're going to combat and it won't make a difference rolling. You'll have more than a 6 or 7 value difference, so you'll just win automatically. But the reality is that it's come so close times when I've been playing, and that roll and that loss or that win has been the difference. One thing I think it's important to stress to people who are watching this and looking at the game is that I focused a lot on the simulation modeling of this game. I'm a theoretical physicist in my I'm a physics teacher in my normal life. I love board games, and I'm looking forward to changing into making board games, but I worked a lot on the balance. And this game is extraordinarily well balanced. And if you play someone who's been playing a long time, you still have a chance of winning. You know, you're never out. And it's got a very clever way of trying to reset itself. So even if you're mid-game and you feel like you're losing, especially with like the Reds, who are not meant to dominate the table, or say the Greens, who are doing all this jiggery pokery stuff, you never really know if you've made that right move at that right time. But it all comes together because you and them will be trying to meet the needs of whatever it is that you're trying to achieve on the table at that time, and it will be so close and so tight that it will only be just 2 or 3 points difference, unless of course someone is just so much better than someone else. I can't, you can't do anything. But in general,
So you're talking about gameplay there for a little bit. How about you walk me through? We've got like a little bit of a setup here that you can see, which sort of shows a game that would be in sort of mid-progress. This isn't how the game would look when it was set up. But it would be really cool just for you to walk me through maybe my turn and your turn, just giving me some tactical information, just showing off the game and sort of like how the mechanics would work during a turn.
Yeah, sure.
So if you want to go first with with the red side, because I've got to be green, because green is my favourite colour in board games, so I've got to play it, right?
So there are reference cards that you've got, that I've got sitting over there actually, that give you a list of the actions that you can take, and you're only allowed to take 1 action per turn, but you are allowed to take 3 actions.
Right.
There are 4 free actions. One of them is to refresh the market. One of them is to flip your cards. However, if you flip them, you cannot attack in the same turn. Okay. One of them is to use a shield token, and one of them is to use, and the fourth one, the final one, is to use a free action card.
Cool.
Okay. So those are free actions, but other than that, you've got just action cards. So if you wanted to, you can play and deploy a card face down in the grid. You would do that so that it faced your opponent, the top of the card would face your opponent, and they'd be doing that so the top of the card faced you. So in here you can actually see if someone was reds, they'd be sitting that side, the top of the card is facing here, and vice versa.
Yeah, we've just changed the board around because of the way we're filming this and stuff.
You can then, if you've managed to get a card on the table already, you can choose to pick up what's in your space.
Cool. Yeah.
So I could pick up these 5 credits that are here, and I could then add them to my area if that's something that you wanted to do, or I could choose to attack the opponent by rolling a dice. So we'll do a couple of turns.
Yeah. So if this was your go coming up now, what would you be doing as your move on your turn?
So my worries would be things like, look, I've got a 1 over there. Like if you play something here, one of the rules, an interesting rule is that if you put attack, you have to attack all the characters that are around you.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
You can't just attack one of them.
Right.
You can choose the order that you do it in.
Okay.
But you can't do it. And the reason for that is if, for example, I was going to play here because I've got a 2, right? So I'm feeling I have to play it this way because this would actually be the correct way that I play it. So let's have a look. I'm actually playing the right card yet. This seems to be sensible. So
you're clearly going to make the best tactical decision on pressure on camera.
Well, I'm trying. This has already got a 7. This 5, because it's been put on the card, adds to every side of the strength. Yeah. So right now this is a 7. So I'm going to play this, okay, and I'm going to flip this character for its ability, and it says when this character.
So we'll bring that over just to the side so people can see it in close.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah.
So
can they see it? Yeah. Okay. So it says when this character uses the pickup action, gain 2 additional credits. So if I had my money back there, right, which would make sense because I had money there, I would then use that maybe to pick it up. But I'm going to flip it, and I'm going to have to wait. That's my turn. Done. I've put.
But importantly, this means that you've now got the 8 strength at the bottom of the card, which is helping to try and deal with the 7 that we've got here, boosted by the
completely. The bad news is that I've got a 1 here, and if I attack this, I have to attack
and
this.
You have no idea.
I've got no clue what it is. It could be a 1, could be 10. Got no clue. And I really don't remember what I put down.
And so when it came around to my turn, what would you suggest would be the best course of action here?
Well, right now, those credits are actually up there, aren't they? So right now I've got a lot of credits. You might want to try and stop me from earning. You can see here I've got a week 3 and a week 4. So we're looking for something that's kind of got that corner dominated.
I reckon that's going to be a good idea. Yeah. With the 7 and the 7 there. And we've got I'm just going to show you the card that I'm thinking of playing. It may be a bad tactical decision, but we'll put it over there.
Yeah. Oh, go on. Go ahead.
So we've got Reap X there with his ability, which says, I'm going to read, so steal 2 credits from your opponents. And there's a really cool quote on there which says, nobody escapes paying the Reaper, which I think is pretty cool. So we'll go back to the tabletop here, and I reckon that would be good. But obviously you wouldn't have seen my card that I was playing.
Yeah, for sure.
But it would be a good idea to play it, so it would be going down this way, wouldn't it? So
it would, yeah.
Like
yeah, that's right.
Face down to the table. And then I could decide to flip it.
You probably would. You can't attack this turn because you've already played your action, which was deploy.
But it's a clear statement of strength to be like, hey, I've got those 2 7s on there as well, and there's also some credits.
Yeah, right. You're going to probably win that battle, right?
So I'd flip the card.
You'd flip the card, and then you'd steal 2 credits from me, and they would go to you. So these 2 credits would come over here, and obviously if you think about it, that's quite a big deal because I've lost 2 credits and you've gained 2 credits. So it's more like a 4 credit.
And again, established great board presence there to try and take control of everything that's happening.
Right, and you're protected from these sides as well because you've already on your weaker sides. This is 3 is beating the 1, but you've already got this here and here to stop me placing something here. One of the important cards here, which is always available, is called a Gravity Well.
Show that off on the camera.
Yeah, there we go. And the Gravity Well allows me to move you. Or myself.
Right, okay.
So to stop there being this static, once I've played something, it's stuck there, you can actually buy these for 2 credits and move somebody. And that can be important because obviously if I want to move this guy out the way, that would be very useful if I had some of these. Sadly, I don't. So I would probably, if it was my turn, I would take 2 credits. I would buy this card, which is a great card.
So I'll show this off to the camera as well.
Yeah, and it says take 2 Gravity Well cards.
Which sounds like a great idea.
Right, which is exactly what I needed. So I get to take 2. Now, normally when you buy these from the market, you can't use them straight away. That's what it says on there. But because I never bought them, I got given them.
Okay, cool.
I can use them straight away. This gets refreshed immediately. And so I can play this as a free action. So my action was to buy the card, okay? So I can use this as a free action to move my character out the way into safety. And I might still lose that middle one, unfortunately, but losing 1 is better than losing 2.
Yeah.
Because you would have attacked that and then that side as well.
That's probably what I was doing next.
Yeah, that's right. Well, now I'm losing 1 maybe. So that gives you an idea of like the basic tactics that are already starting to develop. If I wanted to, I can use the second one as well, and I probably would, if it was me, I'd probably move you across here.
Because then
you're a 7 versus 8.
Because you probably can't quite see it here, but the strength here is the 8 here is for the Queen, for Queen Exa, and then we have Repex who's got strength 7 there.
And now I'm in a dominant position now. You were in a dominant position, but now I'm in a dominant position. So
there's a real nice back and forth between the two players. That strategy element, I think, is really cool in that sort of like revealing and the strength and stuff. And of course, the abilities on the card is a really cool sort of new extra dynamic effect to it as well, which is really good.
At any point, you can spend 2 credits and you can reinforce this. So you just roll a die.
So it's just roll a die.
Roll a die.
We'll put it over here. Doodle-doo. Ooh, I've rolled 3.
And then
clearly I've rolled badly.
And then you can choose to add it to any side you want of any of your characters.
Oh, okay.
But you might want to just put it here. So now you've spent 2 credits, but now you're in front again.
It's just over here, bolstering things over there, which is pretty cool.
So now you're 10
dominant position.
Yeah, that's right. You're 10 versus 8, and so if we roll, statistically likely you're going to win. You might not.
I might not.
You might not.
The gods Nuffle and the gods of luck might turn against me.
I bet my rolling's worse than yours.
I am known for rolling quite well in my group. So.
Oh right. Well, I'm not. Unfortunately, I'm that guy that rolls the 1.
Great. We're going to play games all the time.
Especially this one.
Especially this one. Yeah. So yeah, that's a really cool look at the sort of the mechanics, sort of how a couple of turns would play out. This is coming to Kickstarter.
The 9th of July.
The 9th of July.
Yes.
Yeah. And so it's going to be running. Is it going to be running for the standard sort of length of the Kickstarter?
1 month.
About 1 month.
1 month.
Fantastic.
Yes.
So you talked about the expansions that are coming in the game.
Yes.
Are you going to be doing any like stretch goals and all kinds of things like that?
So there are stretch goals. The stretch goals, number 1, will be to get the dice to be a special die. What are they called? They're design dice for the game.
Okay, right, yeah. So, specifically designed with
the styling of the game, yeah.
Right,
so, and if you in the rule book there is actually a picture of that. And you could, guys, by the way, you can download the rule book.
You can learn about the game.
You can download it. It's also available to play for free on Tabletop Sim and as a mod. So you're welcome to go and try it out. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, you can literally. What was going to say? Oh yeah, you can buy them. Oh, sorry, I just lost my train of thought there for a minute. So it's been a long day. I tell you, this has been an incredible event. If you've never been here, you really should come.
UK Games Expo is amazing.
UK Games Expo, unbelievable. But you can then those guys can try it out and have a look for themselves and see how the game plays out.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic stuff. Yeah. Make sure you check this out on Kickstarter when it comes to it. It looks absolutely fantastic. I'm sure we'll be covering it in the news and stuff on tabletop.com.
Yeah. Just one quick thing.
Yeah, sure, go for it.
You guys wanted to know what else you'll get. You're going to get more market cards, and you'll get a few other better items in the game if the stretch goals meet the. That's what we.
That's the thing that I really like about Kickstarter is when they focus on that, sort of improving the components and sort of adding those little extra things. The base game more of an interesting prospect.
I've been speaking with Panda. Everything's going to improve if these stretch goals are met. Yeah,
so there you go, guys. Check out Vector Wars. It's on Kickstarter in July. What's the date again? 11th?
9th.
That's it. 9th.
July 9th.
9th. Go and check it out for yourself. We're going to be carrying on with some more stuff tomorrow because it's the end of our live stream for today. But if you want to go and check out some more stuff from UK Games Expo 2019, go and check out our live blogs. Find all the different videos we've been doing. We've been doing some really cool comment prizes and all kinds of things. So go and get stuck in there.
Amazing.
And of course, we have the Monster Apocalypse prize. So if you want to win yourself a starter bundle,
looks awesome.
It's going to be great. It's kaijus and everything. It's really, really cool.
So
and all the models are the unpainted ones that you put together and you paint yourself, which is very, very awesome. So get commenting. You could win a bundle. There's one going to be given away on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There's 3 chances, which is very, very cool indeed. We're going to move on. I'm going to think more about Vector Wars and I'm going to try and win as the games here. And we'll see you guys very, very soon. More stuff on the live streams and on the live blogs from UK